la principal universidad canadiense
Se está grabando la llamada.
en el Atlántico canadiense. Estamos a 2 horas y media de diferencia. Scott ya está en la tarde, nosotros aún estamos en la mañana. Y Scott estudia el tema de los partidos políticos, las elecciones, la dinámica política canadiense-americana, que hoy día es tan conocida y todo el mundo habla de ella. Así que estamos atentos, y también a la presentación de las oportunidades del posgrado en Memorial University. Well, Scott, thank you. You can start, please.
Province. Two of them, including the largest single campus, are here in St. John's, but we also have a campus on the west coast of the island of Newfoundland in Corner Brook. And we have a small campus in Labrador, which is the northern part of the province connected to the province of Quebec. But the great bulk of the activity in the university happens where I'm at here in St. John's. The Department of Political Science consists of 14 full-time faculty members across the traditional, well, at least traditional in Canada and the United States, subfields of political science, which are international relations, comparative politics, and political theory. And we also have subfields focused on Canadian politics and also on public policy, public administration. Our department offers undergraduate programs in political science and also in law and public policy. And we have a graduate program in political science, which leads to a Master of Arts degree. We offer cooperative education programs at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. And we have a diverse and I think diversifying student body, including many international students, some from Latin America, but mostly our international students in recent years have come from Africa and South Asia. And of course, we have lots of Canadians and some Americans as well in our program. I'll note, because people don't always know, that we operate in English. The university is an English-speaking university in an English-speaking city. I just mentioned that because people sometimes assume Canada is a little more uniformly bilingual than it is. But this is certainly an English-speaking city, although we do have a French department here in the faculty. I also thought I would just mention a couple of particular areas of research and teaching strength in the department, and I'm just kind of putting this very broadly. One broad area I would say is representative democracy. So here I include the study of elections, the psychology of voting and public opinion. That's really my area of expertise. Legislative behavior and politics, and democratic theory. We have a good number of folks, 4 or 5 of us, working on topics in that area. And then the other area I'll mention, which is larger and includes more people, I would say we could call environmental politics and the politics of natural resources. And so here I'd include folks who work on the politics of climate change, food politics, including the political economy of agriculture, indigenous politics and mining, and also the politics of identity and resource conflicts. And in terms of kind of the geographic emphasis here, this is really, both a kind of Canadian politics and a comparative politics sort of orientation here. We have people working on, indigenous politics and mining in Canada, on resource conflicts in Africa and in Southeast Asia, climate change politics globally, incorporating many different kind of country cases. And so that's kind of a diverse area that really cuts across lots of different geographies. So that's what I would have to say by way of an introduction to our department and to the university. There's obviously a lot more to be said, but I'd really rather hear any questions you might have and try to answer them. And thanks for the opportunity to talk about our department.
Scott, uh, as South American country, we are interested in experience, no? In experience, the Memorial University, your department, for example, with the other South American university. This experience, this academic experience, will be very important for us to develop new activities with Memorial University.
Sorry, I don't know if I quite understand. Do you have a question? Is that a question? So you're interested in, yeah, could you say a little bit more, Hector? I don't think I quite understand.
The question is the experience with South America University and Memorial University. What is this
Right.
experience?
Right. What
For us, will be
experiences have
very
we
important.
had? Right. So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking about what kind of experience we've had here in the department with the universities in South America. And historically, there were we actually have had some scholars in the department who have had research interests in South America. But that's actually some years in the past now, and so we don't currently have anyone who's focused research-wise on South America. Um, and I would say for students as well, we have the odd student coming through from South America. So I had a master's student from Colombia a couple of years ago now. She graduated. Um, I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to a South American audience, but she was definitely one of the best students I've ever had, and she wrote a wonderful thesis on the politics of migration from Colombia. Um, and so we do have students from time to time who come up here and that I've gotten to know as well. But there isn't considerable experience, at least in this department. And I think that's broadly true for this faculty, at least. But the university more broadly, I can't say for certain. But for us, we don't have, as interested as we are in having people from all over, and South American in particular seems like an obvious place to recruit people from, we don't have tons of experience, I would say. So are there any questions or anything else, Hector, that you'd like me to say more about? I think if you have a question, feel free to just open your microphone and share it with everyone, or you could put a question in the chat. I can look at the chat as well. Okay, well, someone has put a question into the chat here. So this is not so much a question about Memorial as about politics. So I'm happy to try and address that. So the question was from Claudia, who asks, what role do you think disinformation plays in voting behavior, and how would you compare its impact in the US and Canada with that in Latin American countries where institutions might be weaker? And that's a great and very difficult question, I think. Um, I don't know if I'll be able to answer it in every detail, but let me say a few things about this. Um, I think disinformation certainly looks pretty concerning when you encounter it in political discourse, and this was certainly, in Canada and the U.S. This is certainly unusual. These are the countries that I know best, and the sort of growth of disinformation as just a normal everyday political practice in American politics, especially, has been really alarming and extraordinary for us to encounter. And Even though that is true, I think one of the important things that we've learned in research regarding disinformation is the extent to which this the way people interact with this information is really conditioned by their existing political attitudes and preferences. Um, Disinformation probably isn't changing a lot of minds as much as it's reinforcing, for a lot of people, especially the most attentive people in politics, reinforcing their existing political impulses. Now, of course, there are going to be some people who are not so engaged in politics, and and not very critical about the information they encounter who may be more influenced. And there's certainly the potential for this to undermine trust in political institutions, trust in political leaders. But I would say one of the kind of most interesting things we've learned is just how much disinformation has been a part of the polarization of politics, especially in the U.S. And so it's not so much kind of changing attitudes as reinforcing attitudes. Now, my Spanish isn't very good, but from what I can tell, Marco Antonio here has remarked that the translator isn't working, and that might be helpful. So I don't know if I'm in a position to turn that on, but I'd be happy to do that.
Scott,
Yes.
in general, we use English in the seminar.
Oh, okay.
Really not problem.
Okay.
The idea is this mode we start with Memorial University next week, continue with the University College London. So there are different academic director. They share his academic opportunity and their research. In this moment, the Canada and America has a different position in the Palestine topic. No, Palestine is a different approach. The Canada and United States. In your experience, this is very difficult for this relationship within Canada and state, or no, this is only a moment in this relationship?
Well, that's a very timely question. My initial thought is that I think the relationship between Canada and the United States since Donald Trump returned to office has been so strained and difficult in regards to trade and security, and many other things. Has been just so disruptive to the relationship between, two countries that share the longest undefended border in the world, that have extremely deep economic, cultural, political, and social ties. The Trump administration has been so disruptive of that relationship that the disagreement, such as it is apparently between Canada and the United States with regard to the situation in Gaza, I'm not sure how significant it is. It's hard to imagine the relations between these countries getting worse. Now, if this was 25 years ago and the United States and Canada diverged in this way, I would have said it was very significant, because that's not usually how things work. We usually are on the same page about international security and conflict, as is Western Europe by and large with the United States. But there are so many disagreements now that I would not regard the disagreement over, whether to recognize specifically, whether to recognize a Palestinian state formally. I would not think that's all that significant. Things are already pretty bad. And so, Trump has tried to link the Canada's decision to, commit to recognizing a Palestinian state if certain conditions are satisfied. Trump has linked that to our negotiations over the trading and security relationship, saying that this is going to make it difficult to come to an agreement. It was already very difficult to come to an agreement. I would also say that my kind of general analysis is that it is unwise to take Donald Trump at his word, and to take what he says, seriously, in the sense that, we can count on what he says actually, being backed up by some follow through down the road. Um, I personally doubt very much that our trading relationship with the U.S. is going to be much affected by this. It's already quite strained and difficult.
Scott, in seminar, the last month participated Chris Lane. Chris Lane is professor at Tulane University, New Orleans. New Orleans is a global city, but Chris shared his experience in the rural Louisiana. New Orleans is Louisiana, so does America. And the rural Louisiana is very different to the city. In the New Orleans, you can have international, no, culture, people, no, experience, but in the rural Louisiana is a different experience. In the seminar, some Canadian professor has participated, the Alberta University, Simon Fraser University, the British Columbia University, the Lakehead, the Montreal, the Quebec or Montreal, etc. In your experience, we have difference in the political attitude between the St. John's and the rural Newfoundland Labrador, similar the playing experience in Louisiana?
That's a good question. I mean, there are certainly important social and cultural differences. St. John's is not a large city. There's a couple of 100,000, 200,000 people, say, in the area, but it's really the only significant population concentration in Newfoundland and Labrador. There's only just over 500,000 people in the province. This is not a very populated area of the world. So in that sense, there's some really significant differences between St. John's and the rest of the province, where basic aspects of social infrastructure and economic and physical infrastructure are very different. The one thing that's somewhat unique about the island of Newfoundland and the way the population is distributed is just how dispersed it is. A lot of the province lives in communities that have just a few hundred people in them, on tiny kind of spits of land, on the coast. Most of the population outside of St. John's is along the coast, especially the northern coast of the island, and these places are hard to get to. Many of them historically were only accessed by boat. Now they generally will all be accessible by road, but even if, as the crow flies, two communities may not be terribly distant. In fact, it's very hard to get between them because of the road distance between them. And so it means that the population outside of St. John's is hard to service. In rural areas, access to healthcare, this is probably the single biggest issue in terms of how it recurs and is kind of always an important one for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. The difficulty of getting healthcare outside of St. John's is kind of very serious. And so, while we have a kind of small city in St. John's, the rest of the province is a lot of very small, very isolated communities. And just to give you a sense of how many there are by last count, about 250 independent political units. So 250 municipalities, we call them, that kind of organize the population here. and that means, necessarily that we're talking about some really, really small places. Some of these places are so small they don't succeed in regularly electing a local government, and so that's very challenging. So that's, I would say, one of the really salient differences between urban St. John's and the rest of the province. I suppose the other thing I would just mention is that many of these small communities are, as you might guess, economically disadvantaged. It's hard to stay there. These communities are small and getting smaller because there aren't economic opportunities there as there once were when, fishing and related activities really defined economic life in the province. And so one of the tensions and challenges that we as a province experience is, how much do we invest in maintaining distant so-called outport communities when the population is increasingly concentrated around St. John's and a few other small cities around the province.
Scott, in United States experience, in the conservative attitude in United States, we can see a very strong position the religion, the church, in Canadian experience, we have a conservative Canadian, but in general, Canada is similar to California. The political attitudes, the Californian and Canada is similar, but we can find in general in Western Europe, in North America, the conservative attitude increase. So in Canada, we can think in the future, in 10 years, more or less, Trump experience.
Sort of Trump experience. Trump,
Canada.
Yeah.
And Canadian Trump.
Yeah. So obviously Canadians, we're really absorbed by American politics as much as any other country except perhaps America itself. And so the question of whether, a Trump-like figure could come to power in Canada has been one we've thought a lot about. And I think there are some things that make Canada different. One is, as you say, that Canadian attitudes are simply less conservative than American attitudes. Canada is more like the most liberal or progressive parts of the United States, like California, as you say. That's a very apt comparison. And so that is kind of one constraint. And so although we have a conservative party, a self-described conservative party that is certainly conservative economically, socially, in many ways, it's not as conservative as the Republican Party. And it's a party that faces some challenges for its conservative rhetoric. A big difference, a big kind of perhaps somewhat subtle difference between Canada and the US is that in the United States, you can, get yourself very close to the presidency without winning the major cities. Los Angeles, Chicago, New York. Of course, there are Republicans in these places, but these are blue cities and blue states. In Canada, it's simply not possible to become prime minister, certainly to win a majority government, without also taking a significant number of seats in our major cities, Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal. And these are the kind of more progressive places. There are also places where the kind of what we would call nativist rhetoric, what sometimes people would call white nationalist, white supremacist rhetoric that the Trump administration is associated with, these are places where that is not a winning argument. The largest concentration of seats by far are around metropolitan Toronto, where there's about 10 million people, depending on how you add things up, and alienating immigrant voters, Canadian citizens who are immigrants or children of immigrants, non-white voters. That's not a winning proposition. And so the Conservative Party has in recent years been looking a bit more conservative, has been looking less friendly toward racial and ethnic minorities, for instance. And they've been doing worse. There's a lot of reasons why they're not in power, but one of the things that has been challenging for them surely has been that they have moved in a kind of Trumpy direction with regard to some of these, social and cultural issues and these, with regard to social diversity of many kinds. The other thing I would just also want to note is that although the Conservative Party of Canada is more conservative than it used to be, it is not in any kind of significant way, undermining democratic norms in the way that Trump, particularly in this second term of office, has been doing. The basic rules of the game in Canada are not being questioned in the way that they are being questioned in the United States by Trump and people on his side.
Scott, if we see the purchasing parity power in ranking, the purchasing parity power, we can see Brazil, the 7th economy of the world, Indonesia, the 9th. We can see France, United Kingdom, and Germany is different to the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
We live a new century, we live a new world order. In our situation, we have new dialogue between the North and the South. For example, Indonesia. For example, India. We can see Trump has a tariff, politics. In this approach, Trump would like to affect China, but at the same time, he needs Vietnam. But Vietnam and China both has a communist party in the power. So this moment is very complex, the dialogue between the North and the South. Mm. Canada is part of the G7, yes, but probably in 10 years, on 20 years, it changed this situation. How you are Canadian, you are political science in Canada, how Canada is reaction, the Canada to new situation?
Well, I mean, I think that we can think about that question in terms of how Canada has responded to the disruption of the relationship with the United States. Canada is just so deeply involved in American society, the American economy, and our political and security relationships are so deeply entwined that, frankly, Canada has not been very, I think, oriented toward other parts of the world. Even our historic relationships in Europe, particularly to the United Kingdom, have become just vastly less significant since the end of the Second World War. And now, with the disruption of Trump's second term of office with the trade war that he's trying to start, that he has started, Canada is having to think again about how we do everything. A couple of examples. Canada has increasingly tried to reconnect or build new connections independent of the United States in regards to security with the European Union. At least it's been opening a conversation about that, about cooperation that wouldn't involve the United States. Just this week, our Minister of Finance and other members of our government have been down in Mexico. Of course, we do have, at least for the time being, a free trade agreement with Mexico and the United States. God knows if that will continue, but in any case, although we have had this relationship for 30 years, first in NAFTA and now through the USMCA agreement, the trade between Canada and Mexico as such is not nearly as significant as you might think. Canada is not a terribly important partner for Mexico and vice versa. And so the current government in Canada is thinking about this as a problem and as something that should be changed. Next to the United States, and I suppose Greenland, our nearest neighbor is Mexico, and so this is a relationship that we want to build. Likewise, in East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Canada there has been for a long time outreach, especially regarding trade to that part of the world. We're part of the kind of Trans-Pacific. The actual acronym eludes me at the moment, but the large Pacific Partnership agreement that the U.S. decided not to be part of. We're part of that, and we've pursued that agenda, those kinds of connections historically. And I think what I would anticipate is just an intensification of this, particularly if this sort of autarkic approach to the global economy on the part of the United States continues beyond this administration. If the US really wants to shrink behind a tariff wall, Canada and all of us who have kind of placed a bet on global trade will be needing to look more broadly. But it's going to be very difficult for Canada. If you want to understand the strength of trading relationships between countries, you get 70-80% of the way there simply by looking at the distance between pairs of countries. And the United States is right on our doorstep. And trade with any other part of the world is just vastly more expensive because of transportation costs. Certainly merchandise trade is, and given what Canada has historically had to offer in terms of natural resources as a leading export, that's a huge constraint. Of course, we can export a lot of other things, in this knowledge economy, and personally, I would hope that's something that Canada doubles down on. Not only because I'm a university educator, but one of the things that I think Canada has to kind of move on or prioritize is continuing to make this place an attractive destination for people from all over the world, particularly from the global south, who want to take advantage of our educational system, our universities, our research ecosystem. That's a great export for Canada, and we've actually been pulling back from that, making it harder for international students, for instance, to come in the last few years. We really need to reverse that, because I think this is one of the main assets we have in the world. In coming years, as you say, a world that's changing fast, and that's not going to be like the 20th century.
Scott, Memorial and San Mar University has some years experience. Some students de San Mar take a semester in Memorial, Peru is the central Sub-Pacific. Peru, in this moment, is 85-90% the Chilean economy. In 20th century, probably the principal economy in Sub-Pacific will be Peru. Peru developed connection with China, Brazil, in middle Peru. Peru has a particular experience, relationship between economy, very strong, and political, very unstable. But this unstable politics no affect economy in general. So it's very interesting to study this connection with a political science approach. So I sure there are opportunity for memorial student and professor to develop political science study Peru. So in your experience, what is the opportunity for the political science to connect Memorial University and San Mar University?
Well, I think there, are a lot of potential connections, some that already exist, as you noted, and some that need to be built or reinforced. I mean, I think that exchanging students is one of the best ways. Students being the most open-minded and kind of more supple minds to be exposed to different places. I think students get the most out of those kinds of connections. But in terms of research opportunities, certainly, I mean, at the moment, in our department, we don't currently have someone in the department working on the politics of Latin America, South America. But as it happens, we're actually trying to recruit someone in the field of comparative politics. And so watch this space. There is the potential that there may be someone with those, kind of apt to kind of exploit those connections. I mean, I think these kinds of contacts like we're having today, having a conversation, getting to know each other a little bit, is one of the ways that these sorts of connections can happen. And as you will know, the kinds of agreements that Memorial can strike with universities to facilitate exchanges between students. I think that's another important way that connection can happen. Yeah, so that's what I would say to that.
Scott, I hope that students from your department has a Peruvian experience. San Mar, the principal place in Lima, but at the same time, San Mar has placed the research and the study in the province, in the south of Lima, north of Lima, in highlands and Amazonia. So the San Mar experience, not only urban experience, also
right
experience, no? Urban and rural experience, national experience. I'm sure for a student could be very special experience. From Canada, we have some experience with the other university. Now we have with Memorial University. I know St. John's is very strong in oceanic study. The Peruvian has one of the most rich seas of the world. No, the Peruvian fishery is very world position. So, in this area, no politics, public politics, sea, national sea could be a common interest between Canada and Peru. So I'm sure this Peruvian experience will be very important for your department, for your university. Well, do you know Lima?
Well, no, I have not visited Peru, but I would love to. I'd love to visit and to know Lima, but no, not me personally.
In general, in seminar, this is a virtual experience, second, physical experience. The professor that participate in seminar project, no? And here in Sudamérica, Chile, Perú, Colombia, or Argentina, and Peru, no? Well, amigos, amigas, tenemos una gran asistencia. Muchas gracias por su tiempo, disponibilidad. Richard, ¿me escuchas? Richard acompaña y apoya a la Escuela Profesional de Ciencias Políticas. Richard, ¿me escuchas? Amigos, amigas, ¿tienen comentarios, tienen preguntas, por favor? Scott, in your department, yes, I know Memorial is a university in development. Yes, I know very important for St. John's the oceanic study, the maritime study. Yes, in this area, no, maritime study, a politics could be a good connection, good beginning within our universities. We can join law departments, political departments, and the science departments. So the Canadian fishery in the Atlantic is very historic, no? Similar to Peruvian. No? Could be opportunity to work together. No?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's something I can certainly keep in mind and take back to the department. So yeah, no, I mean, this has been really good to hear more about your university and about Peru, and also to have an opportunity to say a little bit about Memorial and to talk a bit about Canadian politics, which I'm always glad to do. So I see.
In this moment, there are international agreement about the sea, no? So what is the Canadian historical political experience to the natural resource, land and the sea? The Canadian experience to protect, no? To protect the resource, the country, resource in the national sea.
Well, I mean, so if I understand what you're asking, I should actually just note that we started a bit later than I expected, so I will need to leave within about 5 minutes. But just to address your question, it's in this province in particular, we're very sensitive to the need to conserve natural resources in the sea because we did such a bad job, or such a bad job was done historically with the cod fishery, which is really essential to the history of this place, certainly to the European settlement of this place. And because of overfishing, the economy of this province was really decimated when the cod fishery was essentially stopped in the 1990s. And it's taken decades for those stocks of cod to slowly recover. And now we have a kind of limited cod fishery that has been slowly opening up. I don't know if it's too fast or too slow. I'm not an expert on that, but there are signs of recovery now, and so I think this is an area of real interest and concern for people here. How to manage fish resources in particular. So yeah, that's something in common as well.
Thank you, Scott. Please, Scott, you can wait a moment to put the picture. Amigos, amigas, por favor, pueden prender su cámara para una captura de la sesión, por favor. Pueden prender su cámara para una captura de la sesión. Scott, we can project, see this opportunity, the contact, and develop activities within Memorial and San Marcos University. Maritime study with a law, politics, or also science approach. Could be project and international events about the sea in Lima in the future with the cooperation, the Memorial University.
You know, there certainly, I think that's a good idea, and we could certainly talk about that more if you have something specific you want to propose, and I can be happy to engage people in my department and in my faculty who would be the right people to be in touch with, certainly. So just don't hesitate to email me about that and we can follow up.
Well, amigos, amigas, pueden encontrar el link de asistencia en el chat. Pueden encontrar el link de asistencia en el chat. Daniel, por favor, ¿me puedes apoyar con la captura de imagen? ¿Puedes dar la señal, por favor? Bien. Un momento.
Por favor, todos prendemos la cámara para poder tomar la captura. Tres, dos. Listo, muchas gracias.
Okay, gracias. Scott, what mode do you recommend visit St. John's?
Oh, what month? This is the month, August, I think. August and September. These are...
But August is holidays in St. John's.
It is. Well, it depends what you're visiting for.
For the university, to visit University Memorial. What month do you recommend?
September, yeah, September or October. September, the weather will be best. October, the weather starts to deteriorate, but that's when the university really comes alive and is very, very busy. The really problematic months to come would be January, February, March, when we have a lot of snow and cold and travel can sometimes be unpredictable. So I would discourage those months, but in the early part of the fall, that's best.
Scott, I recommend you visit Peru, visit San Marcos in July, August. Yes, for us it's holiday, but at the same time, continued activities, university, research, and academic activities. Could be project and an activity about the sea, the Canadian experience, the Peruvian experience in July or August the next year.
Okay, well, thank you for the invitation, and it probably wouldn't be me as much as I'd love to, but I certainly have colleagues with interests on the sea, oceans, fisheries, and
Scott, the next year for Peru is presidential election. It's a political year the next year.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's exciting.
Your study for political parties, election, and political behavior.
Perfect.
Well, thank you, Scott. Yes, it's a distance between St. John's and Lima. It's a north hemisphere, south hemisphere. Yes, of course. But we can work to connect our university, our community.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. It's been really interesting and enjoyable.
Amigos y amigas, les comparto por el chat el website del profesor Scott Matthew en un momento. En un momento. En el chat pueden ver en este momento el website del profesor Scott Matthews para continuar, ¿no?, el intercambio, el diálogo. Well, Scott, thank you. I hope that I can join in the future.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. I'll sign off now, but thank you everyone for coming today, and have a great day down there. Bye now.
Amigos, amigas, muchas gracias por su asistencia. Les hago presente que este 20 de agosto a las 10 de la mañana nos acompaña la profesora directora del Departamento de Química de la Universidad de Londres, que es ganadora del Premio de Química de Materiales de la Royal Society of Chemistry, Claire, la profesora Claire. Así que espero que puedan asistir este 20 de agosto a las 10 de la mañana al seminario. Muchas gracias por su asistencia y estamos